Greetings, citizens, and welcome to Reverse the Verse Live, the only weekly series from Cloud Imperium Games that's done live, because I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm your host, Community Content Manager, Jared Huckabee. Now, if this is your first Reverse the Verse, you have to fight. What? All right, we're already off script. Each week we bring you a bit of news from the week, interviews with our developers, a look inside the inner workings of CIG, a highlight of some of the community content that's created from the community, and provide you with some of our behind the scenes of our behind the scenes. Last week on our first episode, we had the global head of production and top man at Foundry 42, Aaron Roberts, on the show. Now, it's always a fun time when Aaron Roberts is on the show, and this episode was no exception. We also highlighted some of the amazing work by Star Citizen Thrustmaster, and we took an inside look at the work at the day in the inside CIG studio. Basically, it was after that, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened after that. Nobody tried to sabotage the show in any way, shape, or form during the broadcast. It was a fun show, and it's available now on YouTube if you want to check that out. In this week's news, we started things off with our first episode of our brand new weekly Q&A series, Calling All Devs. Now, this is a brand new show that airs each and every Monday, where backers submit questions on Spectrum. You guys vote on which questions we ask every day, and then I call developers on Skype and get the answers straight from the proverbial horse's mouth. It's a great way to get you guys the fastest answers possible and to minimize the amount of downtime on our developers so that they can focus on the development of the game. And personally, I think it's great when you can hear these answers directly from the developers' mouths, because, I mean, you see their expressions, you hear their voice, the exclamation that's included in intonation and expression is one of those things that we can do here at Star Citizen that other game companies, just don't. You don't get it with a post on the forums that's been sanitized by 15 rounds of people, forming and shaping the answers. It's like I said, it's one of those things that I'm really proud that we get to do here at Star Citizen. I think you guys will appreciate it too. Tuesday saw the release of another lore post in the Empire Report series. Remember when we used to film Empire Report? There's nobody over there. I'm talking to nobody. On Wednesday, our resident Bug Smasher Mark Abent returned with a new show, the first Bug Smashers of 2018, where he dealt with spawn problems. You could say that he had 99 spawn problems, and I don't know. I had a joke here, and I don't remember it. Yesterday also brought with us the highlight of any week, the very first Around the Verse of the new year, or the very first Around the Verse with our new ship shapes. That's right, ship shape, our new quasi-weekly. We're still working out how often we're going to do it. It's a great look. Now, we brought the new ship shape in with our anniversary specials. Remember we had those 8 anniversary specials and then the holiday special. Between those 9 episodes in the last 54 days or whatever, we covered 18 ships. 18 ships. That's virtually every single ship in the ship pipeline. So this month's segment focused a bit on process and the idea where ships came from. And personally, I think it was worth it alone to hear Chris Roberts talk about his inspiration and where he gets these things from. Now, additionally, concierge members will see a new poll on the website right now if you go to robertspaceindustries.com, and there's a poll voting on the next concierge exclusive t-shirt to be manufactured in 2018. Now, there are 3 choices. You can see them on the screen there. Personally, I voted for the Dragonfly because I think the verse can use a little bit of color. That's me. Finally, the VIP studio tour that we talked about last week had their tickets go on sale, 3 batches of 20 throughout the day. They sold out in less than a minute, as to be expected, and somehow, some way, without me pulling any strings whatsoever, my dad got a ticket to the event. Yeah, May the 4th will be Bring Your Dad Lando to Work Day. I can't wait. All right, with that, we're going to wrap up the news for this week, but don't fret, we'll be right back with a special guest, composer for Squadron 42, Mr. Geoff Zanelli. Stay tuned.
What do you desire? What makes you itch? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Let's suppose, I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we haven't the faintest idea what we want to do. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. I say, do you want to teach in a riding school? If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on spending things you don't like and doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question. What do I desire?
Another great video, a cinematic made for the P-52 Archimedes. P-50, is it the P-52, P-32, P-72 Archimedes. It's all rambling there. All right, joining us in studio,
Hello.
Geoff, how you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for coming in.
Of course.
I know it's a long trek. We of course we met when we did the ATV segment with you almost exactly a year ago.
How about that?
Over at the Hans Zimmer studio in
That's right.
in
That's where I am.
Santa Monica.
Yeah.
I remember when we went over there, I was like, oh, we're going to Hans Zimmer studio. And that's exciting enough. And then you find out the Hans Zimmer studio is like 2.5 blocks from where you live.
It's there's also 7 or 8 buildings. I mean,
Yes.
it's
It was massive.
It's massive. We got a lot of, well, it's sort of a big, film music central in a way, but yeah, that's my home.
Now you've worked with Hans Zimmer for quite a while.
Quite a while. I was his intern in 1994, right? Which makes me feel old, but that's actually how I came into the business. I didn't know a soul in Los Angeles. I didn't know a composer. I didn't know a studio, and I managed somehow to sort of beg my way into an internship with him. He was writing The Lion King at the time, so I certainly knew who he was he had already done, I think, Driving Miss Daisy and Rain Man and some amazing scores, but then obviously The Lion King was like, in retrospect, I suddenly realized, wait, he's in there doing that. But anyway, yeah, so I'd been there ever since. When in 96, I moved in full time. I was still in college at first, and have had a studio there ever since.
So you, of course, you've had you started in '94 as an intern.
That's
so
right.
you have quite a storied career. We were looking at his IMDb page earlier. Like, oh, we didn't know he did that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Before we get into the questions and everything, for the folks who may not know you,
Sure.
Tell us how you got started with Chris.
Okay, with Chris, I met him actually scoring a film that he was producing called Outlander. Yeah, and so that, let's see, and I think probably because he had heard music that I had written for the Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl, with Hans, and I think, took a meeting, looked at his movie, and I mean, we had like a monster destroying a Viking village, and and I thought, like, I have to do this. I'm raised on fantasy movies and sci-fi and adventure, and actually, my first experience with Chris was as a film composer. So when Star Citizen came around, he said, look, we're doing this narrative, story-driven campaign that's like part of the universe. Would you like to take a look at it? And of course, I came and I saw his sort of early ambitions and goals. This would have been, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and sign me up. Because, well, the other thing is, I knew Chris even before Outlander, not personally, but I knew him because I played his games. I played Wing Commander. That was the exact time in my life when I was in high school, when I had that perfect moment when you can game all the time. Yes. And so Wing Commanders 1 and 2 were those years for me, actually. So
I didn't own a computer in those days.
Okay.
I had to go to my friend's house and play. And when I say play, I mean watch him
Right.
play. Yeah, he was very ardent. It's my computer, it's my joystick, and you're bad. And so he played, and I just sat there and watched.
Right.
And watched. Thanks, Matt Chamley.
Well, listen, the truth is, these days, it's pretty fun to watch people play games.
Now it's a whole
You know what I mean?
industry.
It's a whole
Now
industry.
it's a whole industry. I was a trailblazer. I was sitting there not playing and watching other people play, back before it was cool.
And we had friendships based around who had which console, because I knew someone who had an Intellivision, but I had Atari. So, you know,
Atari 600.
Exactly, that was me, my roots.
Combat.
Yep, a Combat, and I played Adventure and Pitfall, and you know, all those. Those were the early days.
I still whenever something terrible goes wrong, I have there's a sound effect from an old Atari game called Impossible Mission.
Okay.
That plays in my head whenever something goes wrong.
It was probably lower fidelity than that, though.
Yeah, it was probably lower fidelity. Like when we started the show today and the teleprompter didn't work at all, and Jared just had to remember his entire script from memory. That's what was going in my head. The entire time. So if you're wondering what the heck was wrong with disco in the first segment there. All right, so you got hooked up with Chris for Outlander.
Yeah.
When he brought you on, we said, hey, we want you to consider working for Squadron.
Yeah.
What are the first things you consider? No, for a movie, do you start with a script? Do you start
Oh,
with an
well, I
edit?
might. Yes. Sometimes if the movie you get the script, other times they will send you the movie and you watch it. In the case of Outlander, they had already shot it, so I did watch it. In the case of Star Citizen, obviously the game wasn't done when, you know, so they talked about the story outline, what are the main characters, main plot points, and those would be the starting points for a composer. So, I mean, the goal for me is to have memorable themes that track certain characters through the game. Like if you watch the vertical slice, you see Old Man, and he has a piece of music that goes when he launches, and there's an intro sequence that plays his music. And the Squadron itself, or really the game itself, has a theme of its own as well, which people are starting to recognize. It's in the like Bishop's speech,
Yes.
you know, from a while ago, and it comes in varying forms throughout the vertical slice as well. So,
did they show you the script, the 1,000-page script before you signed on or after you signed on?
well, I should say I looked at the outline of the of the game. You know, I realize then the script probably keeps getting longer, actually. But yes, it is 1,000 pages now, isn't it?
Yeah,
And,
I don't know quite where it's landed right now. But the last week I ever talked about it with Haddock, it was something like 12 or 1,300
Right.
pages at that point.
It was not that long. When I looked at it, it was an outline, of story
Yeah.
outline, and, you know, and by the way, a developing story outline. So it was surely slightly or maybe significantly different, you know, now than it was then. But I knew that there was going to be a great story arc, and I know from Chris's prior game work and from Outlander that he's, you know, looking at a big picture. And well, yeah. Sign me up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we are taking questions directly from our viewers live. You can submit questions in one of two places. You can submit them directly into the Twitch chat. We are, of course, live now on twitch.tv/StarCitizen. Just in case you're watching this on the YouTube replay later. You missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. We also take questions from Spectrum, which is our own communication platform up on robertspaceindustries.com. We put a thread up earlier this week to start collecting questions, you know, for the people who you know, they're working during the day, they can't quite, you know, make the show live. So we wanted to be sure everybody had their chance to send questions.
Great.
And the virtue of the Spectrum thread is not only can they submit questions, but they can actually vote on which questions they want to see. So other people can come and say, oh, I really want to see that question. I really want to see that question. So right now, I'm going to start you off with the top voted question for all of Squadron 42. Hey, Geoff.
Hey.
How does Squadron 42 end?
With the end credits, with the credit roll. Actually, who knows?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. The question was actually interesting. Like, if I had tried to predict it, this would not have been what I would have predicted the top question to be. It says, anything you can tell us about space radio music in our ships?
Space radio music.
Yeah. It's the most top voted question, but it was curious enough that I figured I would
Put it out there.
would
Well,
pose
look,
it.
I think we're certainly planning on some fun Easter eggs. Part of the joy of Star Citizen, there is a whole like lore building. You know, we're building a world, and in that world, there would certainly be music. You know, so what I'm mostly tasked with is the score of the game, which is, you know, not in world. It's actually more the player's experience. But within the world, there will, you know, we're exploring ways of creating, you know, music and art and things that, you know, exist in that world. So let me say, Don't be surprised if you find some really fun Easter eggs when you get into the game regarding space radio.
It's one of the hallmarks of any Chris Roberts project. He wants that lived-in diegetic universe.
Right.
And that means there are things that are going to be on TVs. There are conversations by characters you don't think are important to the story going on, in the background. It's like, well, let's go over here and see what they're saying.
Right, exactly.
And maybe they're listening to music on a boombox.
Totally, and it makes it immersive. In fact, actually, I did the music for you remember the Cutlass commercial, which actually had a radio in it, and we switch over to the Tango, and that's little old me playing the guitar.
The Cutlass commercial is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it.
Because I have been known to cut a tango from.
Very good, very good. I am only been known to play a tango, so.
A tango and a merengue.
Very good.
Merengue was my thing. All right.
He'll be dancing solo for the rest of the show. I'm not
solo.
joining in on.
Okay. Question. We also, like I said, we're taking questions from the thread. We also have questions coming in live from the live chat. Have you created any spooky/scary music for horror segments in Squadron 42? Now, we're not going to say whether there are horror segments in Squadron 42. We're not going to answer that. But I'm going to change this to be: have you created any music specifically for genre related? So we don't want to spoil.
Sure. Right. Obviously, well, look. The point of the score actually is to kind of play the player's experience. So certainly, if something is horrific, you'll have horrific music. If something is tense, you'll have that. If it's heroic, you'll have that. So the short answer is yes. You're going to hear all sorts of kinds of music. We typically have a kind of a sonic palette, I'd say, that we're going to use for the game, which doesn't mean we never color outside the lines, but it does mean that we have something consistency. But there are a few moments in the vertical slice which start to hint at some of the more tense discoveries you're going to make. Discovering this, Trejo's chained to a pipe. You know what I mean? Like, so you get moments like that, and I would say that would be the tip of the iceberg in terms of drama that we have in the story.
One of the things that I've been very deliberate at doing in the time, I've been working for the project for about 3 years now.
Okay.
And I knew when I came on board that Star Citizen as a project will pretty much be kind of spoiled for me. I'm going to know everything ahead of time.
Right.
As far as playing the game, I'm not going to get to discover jump points or doing it, because it's like, why? If I discovered something and I get to name it, they're like, well, you knew about it ahead of time. Even if I didn't, they're like, you knew about it ahead of time. So one of the very deliberate things I've done is stayed away from Squadron stuff. Squadron was the one aspect of this project that I could kind of firewall. And still remain a fan. So much of the vertical slice stuff I didn't see until I saw it live.
Okay, cool.
As I'm running the show, I saw it live, and no, I was intense. You used the word intense. Intense was a good word. I was, if I can be allowed to be a fan of it for a second, I was completely blown away by the storytelling and the quality of the performances, and especially the way the music supported that.
Good, thank you.
You used the word intense. One of the comments that we've heard, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Some people were at times critical of maybe the music was a little too intense.
Well,
let's talk about that.
Sure. And,
why'd you do that?
Well, a couple things. The vertical slice is actually something that's educational for us, as the development team as well. It's actually why we make these things. It's shown to the community so you can see what we've been up to. But the reality is that is, how I gain insight into whether or not my music's working, and I don't believe it's working 100%. The thing about what I do is I write music, and then I find any way that I can incrementally improve any bit of it. I happen to agree, actually, in a lot of cases with the way it's played in the vertical slice. It's a pre-alpha, right? So we're
that's the very first implementation.
Right, exactly, right. And it's not necessarily the final version of the mix or the final version of the volumes or the intensity of anything. So, in fact, I actually went through it, with my red pen, and I wrote down all the bits. This is what we need to carve here. This is what we need to do there. And working with the audio team in the UK, the game engine is going to.
The music logic system.
The music logic system will be tweaked in such a way that it'll support the player's experience with the music, as opposed to sort of invade it. So let's say the launch sequence. Well, that's a good moment for music to kind of be in your face and big. But if you're flying from one place to another, it's not necessarily the place for like the big tune. Exactly. Right. It's more ambient. Should be setting the mood, and is it tense or is it heroic or is it that? But it doesn't need to overstate it. So those are all things that we are working on. Myself and the audio team in the UK to to make it better. Let me put it this way. The pre-alpha version that you guys saw on the vertical slice is the absolute worst that could ever be.
Yes.
And in fact, it's quite promising to see it looking this good this early.
I know there's one of the features of the music logic system that wasn't completely online at the time that we would do the demo is the bit where how it mixes with the dialogue.
Sure.
One of the ways the music's supposed to dip down at the moments when people talk and stuff like that.
Well, and there's another thing the music logic is doing in there that sort of would be transparent, I think, when you're watching a video of a playback like that, which is what that was. The music is written in such a way that the music logic system inside the game can actually score the player's actions as they happen. So that was step one. And when I talked with the audio team, Phil and Lee Banyard, about how can we get the game to make the decisions that I would make if this were a movie and I were scoring it. So all the music is written. Let me put it this way. I would not be surprised if there are whole pieces of music that certain players don't hear because they went that way instead of that way, or there's a mass of music that's there, and the engine is making a lot of clever, very situation-dependent decisions about what to play to the player as they're going through. So that's exciting.
How do you wrap your brain around that? In a movie, you've got the scene.
It's kind of locked.
Most of the time, it's locked. If you're Spielberg and Williams working on E.T., at the end, okay, you go back and you change the edit to match the music.
Sure.
In a rare occasion, but for the most part, the scene is locked. So you know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly. You can do what you need to do to match every beat in the thing. But when somebody comes and says, all right, we want to build this music logic system, and we don't know if the character is going to go here, we don't know if the character is going here, we don't know if the character is going to support this person, if the character is going to betray this person. How do you wrap your head around composing flexible music?
Well, it is different, right? Because there isn't a version of E.T. where he doesn't go home, and no one had to write that music, right? But in
which there was, though.
I know. I wish he would stay. Right? But in this case, we know certain things, most likely will happen, but we also don't know when they're going to happen. That's another thing. But what I did really was with the music logic systems. Let's say you're flying your ship, and you're in combat, right? But that can mean a lot of different things. There can be 2 enemies. There can be 10. There can be none. They can be right around the corner. So those are all different pieces of music, but they're written in such a way that they can transition at any point from one to the next, and the game engine can keep track of what's happening to the player. Did the bad guy come out? Are you outnumbered? Are you injured? Are you winning? Are you losing? And it can switch into and out of a grim version of the same music, a heroic version, a kind of more ambient version, and this exists for all sorts of different levels, game states. Is it a more epic scene? Is it more intimate? Is it hand-to-hand combat? Or is it EVA?
I hadn't considered that. The recording different versions of the same music is a grim version.
Right, exactly, like a variation of the same piece of music.
Is that just changing the key? You're doing this piece in a.
Actually, it's not changing the key, because that would make it more difficult to transition into and out of. But other techniques that that our musicians can use are, how fast it is, how busy it is, how dark it is. So all the different arrangements, and it isn't always even necessarily the same melody when it switches to grim. There might be a new melody that comes in that's more doom, doom and gloom, or something a little more heroic, or. Sometimes it's not melodic at all. It's just a tonal shift. And some cases it's really subtle. And in other cases you're going to really feel it. The player is actually almost in control of what the music is doing in a way. If they're winning, it rewards you.
One of the questions from the live chat, what's your favorite video game music? I don't know. We should start. I know we played Atari. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have a big history with? Do you have a history?
Yeah. No, I am, and I played. I think of the Ultima games. I think of Wing Commander as well. I think George Olje wrote the first one, right? And I know George. Great job on that. Let me think. I mean, because I am a gamer. I mean, I find Mario to be irresistible, the original one.
I always have trouble with favorite questions because the way my brain works, I don't prioritize things like that. I don't have to pit the things that I like against each other and say I like this one more than this one.
Sure. But I mean, I respond to things that are unique, you know.
Let's change this up. The next question says, what inspirations do you have when composing music for Squadron 40? Let's pivot that question to this.
Well, the game itself is a good place to start, and I think, you know, once we kind of got a sense of what the story was, we went, okay, this is actually classic space opera, right? Which is why I think in the vertical slice you hear it's not entirely but largely orchestral, you know, and I think we have there's a real good reason for that, which is that once we actually record this with a live orchestra, we should talk about that actually, that you're going to hear humanity and, you know, real people and musicians and something acoustic and real, and that kind of grounds this sort of massive, sort of unbelievably, I don't know, epic experience in something you can feel. You know, when I record orchestras, I don't like the sort of glossy, distant orchestra. I like when you can hear players and bows scraping and breaths and all of that stuff, and that it kind of
It's
gets
texture.
into exactly. There's a texture. It gets into the blood of the music, and you hear it, and you know, it does something to a person. You know what I mean? And so I want it to grab you and pull you into your screen. You know, but that is something. That's another thing actually that wasn't in the vertical slice. Those are demos of the music. I mean, you know, savvy musicians will have noticed those are. It's not a live orchestra yet, but we're going to be recording, you know, this thing with a massive orchestra, and it's gonna. I'm excited.
What do you mean? I have the soundtrack right here.
How'd you get that?
I have the.
What's it say on the back?
It's the track listing,
isn't it?
No, I have the full Squadron 42 soundtrack. It's already been recorded, and it's got
I'll tell you what's tricky about this. Oh wow! Look at this. Look at. Stuff I haven't written. Pimp your spaceship? Do I have to write that? Here's where we're at right now.
I may have made a couple suggestions. I may have made a couple track suggestions. I mean, you don't. I'm not saying that you have to use those.
There's a cue called Bagel Carrier, but it says it's only 40 seconds long. So.
Well, I mean, how long do you need to really convey the idea of a bagel carrier?
To carry a bagel? I don't know. I'll tell you something that's interesting. Right now. As of now, I believe I've written 3 to 3.5 hours of music. So we're going to need a few more of these. We'll need a box set. Okay. And more to come.
Let's see if we can see this on we do have an actual track listing here. I may have spent a little more time than was probably appropriate. But I was inspired. If you remember when the Phantom Menace soundtrack came out, it came out like 2 weeks before the movie.
Yes, there was a video and everything.
Yeah,
MTV was
and the second to last track on the track listing was Qui-Gon Jinn's funeral. Spoiler. So I have Colonel Blair's funeral in here.
No spoilers. No spoilers today.
If you find Colonel Blair in this game, it's like this. But no, there's
That's funny. Whenever I do soundtrack albums, I'm forever changing the title so I don't spoil the movie. I really do that.
Well, as a Star Wars fan, we appreciate that.
Good.
We appreciate that. Whoever published the Phantom Menace soundtrack.
Yeah, oops, right?
And weeks before. But I mean, Admiral Bishop's tax return, I think, is appropriate.
Well, he released them.
So back to the questions. The next most voted on question, we're going back to the Spectrum thread where people submitted questions and voted on. This was the next most voted on question, and
oh boy,
Star Citizens are an interesting lot. I'm harping on this as you guys because I don't want you to think I'm responsible for this. This is all on you. The second most voted on question was, any chance of getting elevator music? You know, for elevators.
Elevator music? I feel like answering that would be a spoiler. I don't know. There's an elevator in the vertical slice, and there's a cue there, but it's not elevator music.
We are not prepared to confirm the existence of elevators. or any scenes taking place in elevators in Squadron 42.
There is one in the vertical slice, but it's a tense moment, and I wouldn't want to break the tension right there.
Let's go back to the live orchestra thing.
Sure, yeah.
So you said we're talking about doing that.
Oh,
We're talking about doing that. What can you tell us of that process?
Oh,
are we doing that next week?
Not next week, no. But like I said, I have a lot of music written, and obviously the point of it is to make the final tweaks and make sure everything's working, and we're all sort of tightening the screws on everything that came from the VS, the vertical slice. So once that's done, we can sit down with an orchestra and record that. And also, there's a large amount of what I would call the music logic system music, which is not to any specific scene in the game, but would play, like I was saying, the flight and the hand-to-hand combat and these kind of game states that we know are going to be there that we can use. And that is basically ready now, actually. So that could be recorded, as soon as we book an orchestra. And we are definitely going to do that. So that's what's going to, this is the next level for the score.
Yeah. There's questions in both the Spectrum chat and it's flooding into live chat. It goes, will the soundtrack be available for Squadron 42?
Oh, I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll say you this one. I'll say you this one with such.
What's in that? There's nothing
with such tracks as "Talk About the F8 Lightning Already" and "Single Player at Night." I'll say you this one. You send $5 to the LA studio. Don't send $5 to the studio.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
There's nothing on that CD.
I know we're not prepared to comment on it yet. We're a little bit cart before the horse. Let's make the thing.
But look,
first.
we're going to have all this music,
Yes.
and I would be surprised if there wasn't a way to make it available. But I'm just saying.
All right, so we haven't recorded with the live orchestra. One of the questions here is about your methodology. What do you? It was in here somewhere. I don't remember. What DAW do you draft your music in?
Oh, Cubase.
Cubase?
Cubase, yeah. I write in Cubase, and then I have Pro Tools, which is basically my mixer and sort of my video playback rig. But Cubase is where I do all the sequencing, and it's all, sample-based and everything. And then we go and sit down with the orchestra, and they play what I've given them.
All right. What was one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome in the scoring of Squadron 42?
Well, let's see. I think one of the trickiest parts about it is when you have, let's say, a long stretch where the player might be going from one place to the next, right? And what's going through the player's head is actually what the next task is, and they might have busy mindset. But you need to do something with the music while they're traveling that is both not repetitive, but interesting enough and kind of keeps the pace going and that kind of thing. So one of the tricky things is finding ways to create music which can play for long stretches, but isn't repetitive. So the way it's actually done, or what I've been trying to do, is write it in say 3 or 4, I want to say like stems or something, that can each play in different permutations. So you might not play all of it at once, or you could, but you can strip away certain elements, or you can put certain elements in, and different combinations of that same basic track, and that can be actually decided by, well, the game engine makes the decision, but we discuss with the audio team how to implement it. So it might be game based.
You mentioned you got to do the music and make sure it doesn't feel repetitive and whatnot. Shortly before the release of Alpha 2.0, Pedro, Pedro Camacho, who is the composer for Star Citizen, you were the composer for Squadron 42.
That's right.
And some of the questions are about that, so we'll go into that. But he sent me this 20-minute long track for Port Olisar, the area where most people are going to be. He goes, "Would you just listen to this all day and tell me if you're sick about it?" And so I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So literally, we had it on for 2 days straight. Right. Okay. Just constantly listen to it. And it's like, no, it's all right. It's good.
I think we're okay. Yeah, right. But that's a real hurdle, and it's not necessarily easy to write music that works like that. It almost goes against what composers are sort of bred to do. Yeah. But so that does make it challenging. But it's pretty exciting when it works, because the idea is to never intrude on the player experience, but instead to enhance it. So.
One of the questions from the live chat asked if there's any any interplay between you and Pedro? Since Pedro's
Well,
doing Star Citizen, you're doing Squadron.
Right. I would anticipate we'll probably do more of that in the future. We're in touch with each other. We share sounds and stuff, but so far we've been sort of deliberately keeping it as separate worlds. And I think the reason really is, the persistent universe is, you can do anything at any time, and that's kind of a different animal than scoring a narrative Squadron 42 game. Even though the player can still make decisions in Squadron 42, it's not. It's story-driven and narrative-driven. So they kind of exist separate, and also certain characters, I believe, are only in Squadron, and that kind of thing. So,
Question from the Spectrum chat that was voted on. Are there any unusual instrumentations used for the Vanduul, them being a legitimately alien race?
Yes, indeed. Well, that's a good question. What I've been up to thus far with the music has not involved a Vanduul.
Okay.
So, but that it's certainly gears turning in my head. Yeah, sorry.
You're not working chronologically. That's not a story. That's not a story spoiler or anything like that. It's
no. But sorry, no, it's not. What I'm saying is, like, you've seen the bulk of what I've done in the vertical slice, which doesn't really include the Vanduul.
Exactly.
So it's, but I completely understand the concept of it. I mean, like they are alien and let me put it this way. Anytime there is something that gives me an excuse to create a new sound, a new tone, and that can be an environment that we're going to go to in the game, it could be a race, it could be a character we don't know about yet because it's not on the VS, there will be an opportunity for me to do something new and fresh and interesting within the soundscape that we're already living in. So anyway, let me put it this way. Yes, I certainly would do that if that were to come up.
The hallmark for alien music to me is always, the first thing I always go back to is Star Trek: The Motion Picture when the Klingons first showed up. Dun, 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 dun. That I don't know why it wasn't particularly alien, I guess.
No, it's more orchestral.
But it was the. I don't know enough music terminology to be able to effectively express what I'm trying to express, but it was just very powerful and very evocative.
And you remember it.
Yeah, and for years, even when Klingons would show up on Star Trek Next Generation or whatever, I'm still like doing the motion picture score, in my head for their bits. Let's see, what else do we got here? Is there a challenge in doing the score for this game that you hadn't foreseen? I know we talked a little bit about challenges before, or thought about before you joined the project, either technologically or just compositionally.
I feel like I probably created more challenges than because it really did turn into a whole lot of conversations with the audio team. Can we do this? Can we make me saying to them, can we get the game engine to do this? Can we, and I don't want to get too technical about it, but
this is the crowd where you can get technical.
Well, look, I'm trying to push what a video game music engine can do. I really mean it when I say I hope that it will make the same decisions that I would make as a composer. So
I'm trying to figure out. There's like a large praying mantis or a cricket in heat or something in the studio. I don't know what that sound is.
What that is either.
I don't know if it's coming over the microphones, but apologize. I'm sorry. Continue.
No. Well, but what I mean is, like, we were certainly, talking a whole lot about how can we do these things? Is it even possible in the music logic? And then they'd get back to me and say, yes, it actually is. And there's a whole thing, in the vertical slice, you're flying through the coil a little bit, and you get a tiny touch of what we're going to be doing with that environment is really special.
Yes.
And the way that music is going to work, it's going to sort of swirl and build up in those stems that I'm talking about, but it actually can kind of shift gears in ways that I don't think a music engine has ever done before. So, the challenges are coming because I'm as ambitious with the music as Chris is with the game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's a hallmark of this entire project, of every aspect of this entire project. It's whatever you thought you were going to do when you
can
start
do
here.
It.
Can you do more? It's like what would you do? What would you do if you could? What would you do? What would you like to do that no other project would let you do, and whatnot? And then find a way to make that happen.
Right.
Because that's a virtue of being crowdfunded. It's a virtue of not going through the normal development hierarchy with publishers and stuff like that. Is we have this freedom to do what nobody else will do. So how do we not take that opportunity?
I think it's great that we do. And yeah, it's like, what can we do? And it's not that we're working without a script. It's that we're writing a brand new script that's bigger and better. You know, we're going like.
That's why they call it game development, not game construction.
Fair enough.
The plans aren't all
Look,
laid
there's
out.
probably plenty of great games that are constructed, but we're developing something here, and it's pretty.
And if you're truly doing something that's never been done before, and in a way that's never been done to make it, there are no instructions.
There's no instructions. And now that we're starting to see with the vertical slice that the promises are starting to work, and it's gonna, you know, it's only gonna get better, but it's pretty cool.
We're gonna take a step back away from Squadron 42 and go more to you here. We have got a question from the live chat.
Sure.
I happen to see a picture on his phone.
No.
You have a habit when you dress up for Halloween. I think that, and literally, I didn't do this. It just came up here. What specific music artists influence your style?
I showed you a picture that I was Freddie Mercury for Halloween. There you go.
Great looking Freddie Mercury.
I was. I had just the mustache and everything, and I was also Prince one year. So
I haven't seen the picture yet.
Those are, you know. I came up in rock bands, actually. You know, I grew up in Orange County here in California, which means I had a ska band, a bad one. But, hey, we tried. We were not signed or anything, but we sure had a lot of fun. And the point of it was, you know, that was my teenage years, and I was playing video games, and I was in a band, and that was my identity. And you know, I listened to rock music. I suppose I came up at the time when like Guns N' Roses was the big band, and I certainly listened to that, and eventually got into progressive rock, I confess. Yes, albums, and what can you do? No, I still listen. Yeah, right. Yes, and Rush, King Crimson, and I still put them on. Anyway, and then, but obviously, once that kind of leads you to something in a way. It's what led me to longer form pieces of music, things that are not 3-minute, 20-second songs, which are kind of locked, and that it ended up kind of pointing me straight into film music, because you really don't have a form handcuffing you. You know, a piece of music in a film can be 20 minutes long, it could be 11 minutes long, depending on what the scene is, and so you get to go to all these different places. So I liked music that did that. The orchestra obviously came into my life at some point. And, you know, I don't know that I came up as like I didn't come up as like a classically trained musician. I came up as a rock guy that then started to add in other things, you know, and I keep doing this to, you know.
Another question from the live chat. Freelancer, which is one of Chris's games, has some culturally distinctive music depending on the region of space you're in.
Okay.
Anything like that for Squadron 42?
Yeah, I think
different star systems,
sure.
Different bass line.
Yeah, well, like we would have definitely different locations are going to have their own specific sounds, and like for instance, the coil is a location, so to speak. It's geographical, so there's a sound for that, and you're probably not really getting a full dose of it in the vertical slice, but there's a sound for when you're on the base at the beginning of the vertical slice. You know, this is a nice friendly territory, and that's its own thing, and you're certainly going to get it from all the places that we're going to show you in the future. So yes, I would say geography and character are the two main informants to what my music is going to be. Yeah.
So. What is your personal goal for the score? It says, what are you trying to evoke with it, without spoiling any?
Well, sure. I mean, I've talked a bit about trying to fulfill, an ambition that we're trying to do this on a level that hasn't been done before. So that's certainly a goal. Break new ground, and that some of that is technical, but. I also want to have a really rich, varied, narrative-driven body of music. You know, by the time this score is written, it's, I'm telling you, I'm already at 3 hours. There's going to be a lot of music. Yeah. So there's going, I think once that's finished, it can be distilled into something like quite amazing, actually, because it's going to go to so many different places. I'm not saying the music is amazing. I'm saying
You've heard it here first, folks. Geoff Zanelli says Geoff Zanelli's music is amazing.
Oh, listen to me. But what I mean is, we
got our quote for the back of the soundtrack now.
There you go.
Geoff Zanelli
quite
says,
amazing.
This is amazing. Actually, if you look closely, it says original score by Geoff Zanelli. Who is cool?
Who is cool?
Who is cool?
I don't know if that's true.
Well, I needed it for spacing.
Okay, got it. I got it. But the other thing is, once you sort of, put it with Pedro's music too, we've got an encyclopedia of Star Citizen music. It's going to be cool.
Another question from the thread. Do prominent characters in the story have their own themes? Very common. Star Wars, probably one of the most
perfect example,
well-known example. Can we find,
well, yes, and that's going to be, so Old Man already has one, and it's starting to kind of gel a little bit, and we're certainly going to do it with all of the characters in the game. So yes, that's
What about
definitely.
the player character? Will the player character?
Well, the player character, yes, and I'll tell you something, that's actually the trickiest thing to me about video game music as opposed to film music. When film music, you write to a character. In this game, the player is the character, right? And each of them is going to have a different experience in it. So that, yes, actually, and that kind of goes back to the most difficult hurdle or most difficult obstacle in the game is how do I get into the player's head and account for different players, different moments, different events. But that's part of what I would call like the overarching Squadron 42 music. Actually, is the player's theme if you want to think of it that way.
Fair enough. Question from the chat. What's your favorite instrument?
Well, I grew up as a guitar player, but no, nowadays I would say probably the cello. And not that I can play one, but I can certainly write for them. And I think that it's, as a solo or an ensemble, which is two very different things, it's the most expressive instrument I can think of. It's extraordinary, actually.
I love the cello. Yeah. All right. From the live chat here, when you're composing, do you start with a melody and add or subtract on top of it until you're satisfied, or do you hear a more complete-ish sound in your head and then try to replicate it?
Probably a more completed sound. In fact, I would say almost never do I get a melody that comes naked in my head. It has something around it. If it's an instrument, if it's chords, it's probably both actually. And then I have to go and sort of dump it out on my head and find it. But yeah, I would say it comes more complete. I don't know if it always did, but it does now.
Yeah. You've worked on other video games before.
A few.
This question says, when a project or score is done and the game or a movie is out, do you watch the final product or play the game?
Well, with the game stuff I did before, I'd play it like beta versions of it as I was working on it. And in a way, that's kind of what we're doing with the vertical slides. I can watch it. I'm not playing it, but that's the same kind of thing, right? With the movies, sometimes I watch them, sometimes I don't. I usually, if there's a premiere or something, I watch. Yeah, and sometimes it's terrifying a little bit. Sometimes I like it. I mean,
well, you hear that often with actors and stuff. People who don't watch their own work,
right?
And I don't get it. I have a big TV here, so I just watch myself the entire time.
Yeah.
Like the entire time he's talking, I'm sad. He's on the screen and I'm not on the screen. I'm on the screen. I can't see myself. So I don't understand that.
I'm trying not to look at the TV because I don't,
See,
I don't really know what I look like.
It's like, yes,
I don't go to mirrors that much.
Yeah. Although what's going on with my hair? I don't know what's going on. Okay. I shouldn't have.
That's better.
I had a big long beard until just.
Did you?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah. Since you've seen me, because you haven't seen me in a month. In January of last year, I looked just like this.
Okay. Then you grew it out.
People are like, "Oh my God, you've changed look." I'm like, "No, I'm just back to how I look."
There you go.
A picture of myself in January of 2017, which is when we met.
Right.
And we worked, and I looked exactly like this. It was just in the over the last year, I made a deal with the community that I wouldn't shave until this last patch came out, and what I thought was just a couple weeks, maybe a month or two, turned into more than half a year.
That's great.
Yeah, it was to the point where it came to the moment where we were all doing the go no goes to launch.
Yes.
Like we were checking in, everybody's checking in, launch, and then we're waiting for Chris to say the go.
Yeah.
And literally, in chat with 400 employees across the world, he goes, "Let's wait another 30 minutes so Jared has to suffer a little bit more." And I'm just like,
you had your razor ready to go.
Yeah. So I don't know. How did we get on that? I don't remember. Let's see. We're just about out of time. Let's see if we've got one more. I know it flies.
Let's do 10 more. Come on, they're listening.
Okay, so we know you worked on music for some of the ship commercials. We talked about the Cutlass already. Do you have a favorite of those that you did? Whether it's the commercial itself or just the track you did for it?
Maybe the Constellation, actually, because to me, that one it makes a big promise. You know what I mean? It makes a big promise of what the game is, the scope, its exploration. There's some danger, but what I liked about it especially was that it wasn't just a combat trailer. Do you know what I mean? It shows that Star Citizen does so much more than that. So that's one that came to mind. We also did a little 2001 nod with the music at the beginning, and then, but then it goes into something, you know, quite hopefully inspirational and aspirational, or you know, whatever the word.
I think very much so. We see that commercial. Our backers will make their own Star Citizen videos. They're usually montages
I think that's awesome,
of not only gameplay footage but other promotional materials like the commercials that we do, and the footage from that Constellation commercial. It gets used all the time because it's a very inspirational, it's a very aspirational
there you go.
thing.
Right.
It's you know, so much of Star Citizen to this point has been combat focused, and that's simply because those were the first gameplay systems that were coming online. It's a core mechanic. It's where we started. One of the things that's exciting about Star Citizen this year and next year and as we go forward is branching out away from that combat. And like you said, I like the way you put it, the promise that the Constellation commercial had of so much more to the overall Star Citizen experience than just fighting.
Right, and how cool is it that the fan base goes, like, we're going to embrace this, and you know, I love how involved the fans are in this. You know, it's exciting. It's actually, you know, we are listening. You know, I'm paying attention to what they're saying and looking at the vertical slice and seeing, you know, that it's meaningful to me that there's a feedback mechanism you wouldn't always get. So
before we let you go, what were your thoughts on the vertical? So you watched it. You watched it.
Sure.
What were you thinking?
And I was watching it knowing full well this is pre-alpha. This is, you know, and we I think obviously with an eye or an ear to music, that's what I was watching it for, and I certainly went through it and went, here's the improvements that I want to make, and one of them is how we shape the music around the player, you know, the whole experience. And in some cases, I think that's, you know, it's not there yet, and it will be, you know. So that was my thought on it. But as a game as a whole, just the story of it, I think plays great. I think the acting performances are sort of unrivaled. I mean, I don't think it's so great. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like you go on the bridge and just any little conversation you have on the way in or something, there's been an attention to detail about that. It's not a throwaway moment. I think it's
for me again. I was
really
watching
special.
I was watching it live at the same time everybody else was as I was running the show, and the three prisoner guys, the three that step up. I mean, that could be the only time we see them for all I know. But, just those guys as they stepped out, they just had such personality. And such a texture to it. I'm like, this could be a little throwaway thing.
Right. And it's one. I mean, I remember as a child gamer, and you'd play a game, and you'd walk in a town, and like 7 of the people would say the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, nice weather today. You know, and it's the immersion isn't there, and now it is. It's like you just somebody walks by you in the hallway, and they have something to say, and it feels legit and real and visceral. So
sorry,
it's cool.
It's the one aspect I still get to be a fan. So you're gonna have to see me fan out. So Geoff, that's it. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much.
No, of course, man. It's been great. Thank you.
Let's try to make it not another year before.
No, let's do it again. I'll do it again.
Maybe. We'll talk, guys. We're gonna take a short break, and then we'll be right back with the wrap up. So stay tuned.
Thanks, guys.
Also respond to my claims that I won the Chillis Dude at CIG interviews. Yeah. What ship are you working on?
Yeah.
Cutler
House. Hello, I'm Christopher Smith. I'm a lead ship artist from Austin, Texas. What else?
Question.
That's it?
I don't know what. Am I saying? I didn't know I was supposed to keep saying.
Go.
So.
What's up?
I'm currently working on a new ship, finally, which is exciting, and it's the Lightning F78. Can I talk about that ship?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably not.
So answer kind of the same things he said.
I forgot all that shit.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
In 3, 2, action.
Hi, I'm Josh Coons. I work at CAG. for about 3 years, working on them ships. It's been hell, man. About 3 years.
And I just hit a college phone. Let's hang out and watch what.
Coming up my nose. Been here for about 3 years. I've made many ships, great many ships. The most challenging. Do you hear that? I put a guy's phone in the ceiling because it was loud.
Now everyone can hear.
About yay.
Is that it's vibrating all the way all through?
Yeah. Dude, that thing's nuts.
On that new show, Jared wants to do the behind the scenes stuff and the skit stuff. I honestly think we can just use all of this as like a.
Yeah. Just roll
Its
that
own
all
little
over the
video.
wall and just shotgun it.
Sounds you hear.
Working at CIG.
We're just gonna let that pass. This is Coons from the ATX signing off.
Cut.
Stay class.
All right, we're here with, state your name.
Hey, Tyler Whitkin. We're in Austin. No, we're not in Austin. We're in San Antonio.
Gosh, darn it.
PAC South 2018 is the current year. We're actually right above the bar Citizen. Let's take a look. So we've got Citizens. Some of them are traveling all the way from Europe for this event.
Yes, we were sitting at a table with Alloy. She's from Dusseldorf, Germany.
Yes,
and I asked her if I could say that, and she said yes. So look at all those bar citizens. Those are bar citizens, and those are bar citizens, those are bar citizens. Look at all these bar citizens.
But more importantly, I don't get to work with my good friend Disco Lando very often because he's half a country away. But this is a special occasion, and Lando and I, come over here. Come. Reunited again.
I have no idea if we're framed right.
I don't know, but you know.
Let me turn it around.
No, that's the wrong way.
Well, how does it work?
You have to turn the.
It doesn't reverse the camera.
Okay, here. Where'd it
Did that
go?
work? Did that work?
Yeah, I think it is.
You did it.
So look, you can do a cool pan. Like,
I'm a technological marvel.
I got a good outro for this. Ready?
Oh yeah.
I'm Tyler Whitkin. Say I'm Disco Lando.
Oh, I'm Disco Lando.
And we're in San Antonio, and that's the Bar Citizen. Woo! See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Was that a good ending? It's still recording.
Yeah, we're just gonna go with it.
Cool.
So, do you see that email that we?
Well, that about wraps things up. A special thanks to Geoff Zanelli for taking the time to join us here in the studio as our guest. And some housekeeping before we go. We've got a couple big shows coming for you next week. On Monday, Calling All Devs returns with your most voted on questions about topics like AUEC trading, hot fixes before 3.1, and more. Thursdays, Around the Verse is the first of our new monthly Squadron 42 focused episodes, so you're not going to want to miss that. And next Friday, we come right back here with our very first Squadron 42-centric Reverse the Verse with special guest, game director Chris Roberts. That's bound to be a good one. So save your Squadron 42 questions and bring them next Friday. So my name is Jared Huckabee, and for all of us here at Cloud Imperium Games and Foundry 42, we hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next week, and I'm Ron Burgundy.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.